3.5 million drivers, moving 11.3 billion tons of goods. They generate over $900 billion in revenue and deliver 72% of every product an American touches. Yet for 2 decades, the American Trucking Association has insisted the industry is short over 60,000 drivers, a claim that suggests the entire supply chain is on the verge of failure. While that number is cited in nearly every headline about shipping delays, the reality of the labor market points toward a much different problem. The narrative of a simple recruitment shortage overlooks a massive, systemic issue with workforce retention that has been building for decades. California's DMV reports 640,000 commercial licenses, yet the state has only 140,000 trucking jobs. The driver pool is 4 times larger than available positions, but large carriers face a 90% annual turnover, effectively cycling their entire workforce every 12 months. Drivers are choosing to flee the profession, forcing us to ask how a career that once anchored the American middle class became unbearable. Under the 1935 Motor Carrier Act, strict regulations turned trucking into a stable, unionized career. A driver in the 1970s could own a house, support a family on a single income, and retire with a pension. That era ended with the 1980 Motor Carrier Act. This deregulation policy stripped away rate floors and flooded the market with thousands of low-cost competitors. This chart shows the direct economic trade-off. While deregulation saved consumers billions, driver salaries dropped by as much as 50% compared to 1970s pay after adjusting for inflation. The growth of big-box retail and e-commerce over the last 45 years was built on the back of this massive, systematic collapse in driver wages. Modern drivers have largely been shifted from W-2 employment to 1099 independent contracting. This transition stripped away essential labor protections and shifted the financial risks onto the individual drivers. Independent operators compete on digital load boards, where brokers take cuts and shippers set prices. When freight rates collapse or fuel prices spike, the driver carries the entire financial loss. Long-haul drivers spend an average of only 7 hours a day actually driving. The rest of their daily time is spent waiting at warehouses and loading docks, which the industry calls detention time. Every delay at a port or backed-up warehouse becomes the driver's unpaid burden. They serve as free shock absorbers for every broken connection in the modern supply chain. Recovering just 18 minutes of paid time per day for each driver would theoretically close the industry's alleged 60,000 driver shortage. The job's current financial structure ensures that systemic failures in logistics are subsidized by the driver's unpaid time, making the career economically unviable for millions. FedEx Ground operates entirely on an asset-light model, where independent service providers officially own the trucks and hire the drivers. FedEx avoids paying benefits, covering wages, or carrying liability for the vehicles. Courts in multiple states have ruled that these drivers were actually employees, leading to hundreds of millions of dollars in major misclassification settlements. In sharp contrast, Walmart maintains a massive private fleet, where new professional drivers can earn up to $110,000 a year. They provide benefits and pay for every single mile, every single stop, and every single delay. The fact that drivers materialize the moment fair pay and protections are offered suggests the shortage is a symptom of corporate refusal to pay a living wage. Instead of improving labor conditions, the industry is looking toward an automation escape hatch, the arrival of driverless heavy-duty trucks. Companies like Aurora Innovation are already running commercial lanes across the Sunbelt. These trucks can run 20 hours a day, doubling the capacity of a human driver, who is restricted by safety laws. Automation is being deployed surgically, extracting the most profitable, low-friction highway routes while leaving the messy, high-risk work to humans. This leaves human drivers relegated to the urban deliveries and first and last mile routes that machines cannot yet handle, the lowest margin segments of the business. Trucking is projected to become a $1.46 trillion market by 2035. With rail lines at capacity and shipping ports reliant on road transport, there is no viable plan B for moving American freight. The supply chain's current vulnerabilities are the result of a decades-long erosion of respect for the workforce. If we expect our stores to remain stocked, The era of treating truck drivers as disposable, unpaid commodities must end.